Today, NOC, also known as El Mencho, was reportedly killed by the Mexican military in an operation with assistance from us, the United States of America. The most powerful cartel leader in the Western Hemisphere is gone. That means it's over. It's not. Because men like El Mencho don't build organizations that die with them. They build systems, networks, infrastructure designed to survive leadership's loss. And that infrastructure is deep within America. From a human perspective, human intelligence, removing the leader doesn't remove the threat, it just delays it. It changes the behavior of the network. It makes it more unpredictable, more decentralized, and in many cases, more dangerous. Because now everyone underneath him is fighting for the power, for the spot, for the top dog. And some of them are already inside the United States. There are 5 things that Americans don't understand about war with cartel. Starting with number 1. Cartels, they're actually in your current community. Look around you right now and look around in your community that you have. I don't care really where you are. You probably have a minimum of a connected dealer that is in your area. So they are prevalent in this country and they're tied in extremely deep into the American roots as it goes right now. And if this war does kick off, it's going to look a lot like Mexico looks right now, right? The Americans that are in Mexico actually have to hide. It's February 23rd, 2026, and they took out a big cartel leader. Now the cartel's starting to go crazy in Mexico. They're starting to try to kidnap Americans that are down there. I don't even know if it's Americans who are living there or if it's just the tourists. But if I'm honest, it would be hard to tell the difference. They would be able to figure it out eventually, but I still don't think they would care. Because when people look at US citizens, it doesn't matter if you live there or not. They look at them as one American is one American. They don't really care unless you were working with them or for them. So that's why it's a big deal because that's going on in Mexico right now. And if it ramps up to the point to where they decide to come into America and do that, it won't be pretty. And that leads us into our second point because the cartels are a business. And what do businesses do? They build networks, right? They build infrastructure where they have buildings and they have planned supply routes. Just everything you would imagine for a business, what a business has to do to supply itself. It's exactly what the cartel is doing. And they're recruiting. It's not on like a jobs website. It's actually not far from that. It's just not the publicly available ones that we see. Think about this as a network. We have freeways that run around the entire perimeter of the US, and then we have them going through the hearts, both east and west, north and south. So all those are big corridors for them. Some of them are larger than others because if you look at like the Northeast, you got I-95, which there's so many tens of millions of people up there that they have to bring drugs to that's why they use that corridor. I mean, Big Pharma uses that corridor too to shovel their drugs up to all those people as well. Well, in fact, they probably have local plants to make it locally. So just remember this. They have these networks just like your local businesses. Think about the nationwide chains. That's exactly what they are. They don't have a sign out front saying, hey, cartel, come get your drugs here. It's more behind the scenes. And we know where they all are locally. And that brings me into my third point. We know where they all are locally, but we don't go get them. We could go get them, and we should. We absolutely should. And for a minute, when we started labeling them as terrorists, we thought for a minute, maybe they're going to actually do this, buckle down and go get them. And to do it properly is really freaking ugly. You have to go in with violence of action to eradicate it. And it wouldn't be pretty. It would be extremely ugly. And we could accomplish it and get the mission done. But since we've never actually fought a war on drugs, we've only had the illusion of the war on drugs. Until we decide to buckle down and actually fight it, nothing will ever come of it. It will always be the local police arresting people and even the DEA and the agencies arresting people, charging them as dealers. But then it keeps on moving forward because you never do anything to actually take the network out. It'll always maintain, unless we actually go to squash it. And we can. It would just be ugly. And for a second, we sure look like we were gonna, because we labeled them terrorist organizations. And look, I do hope we do still go do it. I do hope, I have a little reserve hope in the back of my head saying maybe there's a tiny percent chance. But seeing how they're so tied into politicians and money kind of going like really deep into it, that's another video. They're so tied into some of the local governments and some of the national folks that it's probably not going to happen. Point number 4, Americans don't understand how economically it would hit our society, because you look at the ties that it has with big pharma and a bunch of other companies. There's a bunch of other companies that are have indirect ties to it because they use all the same precursors, all the chemicals, everything that comes from overseas. They're using all the same stuff for the most part. And their ties are there. And we can even look to potentially big pharma and the ties of stuff coming out of Afghanistan. It'll hurt economically. It would be very difficult with how people hide different paperwork to actually prove something like that. But it's pretty evident the more you dig into the depths of what the cartels are and where they go, how deep they go, who they're tied to. Could you prove it in what we would say a court of law? Probably not. But I mean, at what point does everything have to be proven in a court of law for us to realize that something is good and bad? Because what does it matter anyways when the courts aren't prosecuting some of the most vile things we've seen in the last 100 years? They're not even looking that direction in February 2026. So what would it matter anyways? But those ties, and they're so deep with how they're economically tied into your community because they're buying a bunch of houses. They're living in probably a nicer house than you are living in. They're starting businesses because they have to wash their money. They have to launder it, right? So a lot of these pop-up businesses, they're legitimate laundering businesses. And think about how you spend every day. That's how they're spending, and they're dumping a lot of money back into society. Our fifth and final for this video, so many of them came in the last 6 years, even longer than that, but especially the last 6 years, that we don't know how extensive the network is. And I can almost guarantee you that a lot of the agencies don't even know this. They're trying to figure it out. I have no doubt in my mind that a lot of these larger government agencies are actually trying to figure it out. And some of them might have an idea, but they're probably not sharing it widely. But we don't even know how extensive the network is. We get an idea when you go to local municipalities and you talk to different police officers and you talk to them about it. Like, you get an idea in that it's in every city. That's how bad it is that you can go to every city and talk about it. And it's not like they're always big dealers and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be that for it to be part of the network. It can be a little tiny chicken wing off in the middle of nowhere. Not only that, not only do we have so much of the cartel here, we have terrorist organizations. The classic terrorists, now that cartels are labeled as terrorists. So we have the classic terrorists, which are like extremists. I'm not even going to list them as any sort of groups anymore, like Muslims, because I don't believe that anymore. If it's an extremist, it's likely been turned into some sort of terrorist organization. That's how I'm going to label it from now on, because my thinking has matured in that manner. So we don't realize how many have come in the past 6 years, and we don't realize how crazy it's going to be to remove it all. And we don't have the mentality to stand up and fight against it. Well, not enough of us, because there are a bunch of us who are now retired or out of the military that we've stood up and we fought against this before. We could look at athletes, like professional athletes, and half of them wouldn't even be mentally tough enough to come in and fight against this stuff. Sure, they're physically there, but mentally they're weak. And I get it, man. We all have struggles, but that's where we've come to in society. And I'll leave you with this, because I walked in to grab myself a nice little coffee this morning, and I came in a different way through the back door of this place, and there was a line this morning. And every single person, as I came in, they're sitting there staring down at their phone. And then I look around, everybody's on a computer and on a phone. And there were like 2, maybe 3 people in the entire shop that were actually talking. And this is another point of discussion for this, is they're so heavily on this thing, and they don't realize how much of it's not being honest and truthful to them. Like, you don't realize how much on here isn't being honest and truthful with you. And you got to learn how to vet the information that's coming through. Like the topics I broached today, some of them you might think, oh, I don't know about that. That sounds pretty conspiratorial. Look, I'm not going to come out and publicly say it if I don't feel that I have the facts to back it up. And I'm not even talking facts that they have written and told you, hey, this is what the truth is. So many people fall into that category too. Hey, they told me this was the truth, and then they provided me the paperwork of what the truth was. So this has to be the truth. And if you can't get beyond that, a good portion of that has to be actually true. So when they throw in the misdirection, the misinformation, that it will look true as well. This is what I've talked about time and time again, is you have to have in your lie, you have to have a high percentage of truth. Anywhere from 85 to 99% of it has to be true, and the rest has to be a lie. It just depends on what the lie is to how much more truth you need behind it, backing it. Because the bigger the lie, the more truth you need to help conceal the lie and make it seem realistic. And I didn't come up with that on my own. With that said, remember, the opinions that I have are largely formed because of the education that I have gotten doing interrogations and informant operations. And that background has formed the opinion and point of view that I have nowadays. So think about that and do with it what you want, because I think about that a lot too. So, anyways, with that said, these are the 5 points that we went over. These are the points that most Americans don't understand about the cartel, about what will happen if America goes to war with the cartel. And there are probably a couple hundred more that we could legitimately talk about. But these are the big outliers. It's important, especially now, it's important that you stay completely aware of your surroundings. And that if this war does kick off, you're going to have to become even more aware and more vigilant, because the last thing you need is for someone to come try to snatch you or your family, because we're all going to be vulnerable since we haven't done anything to eradicate any of this within our own communities. And you'll be responsible for yourself. The police aren't trained on this. Not that they won't be able to help out in certain ways, but they're not trained on this. So that's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching. Tradecraft for life. This is your extra topic. Lastly, on if the cartels go to war with us, people don't realize how much we will depend on the regular army and the regular military. We often look at the special forces, the tier 2 and the tier 1 guys, Delta, DevGru, SEAL teams, the Rangers. We look at all them and we think, okay, well, they can go get the job done. And they can at a high level. However, but you're not going to do it without the regular military. Because one thing you have to recognize is even the special forces guys, the special operations, they're all supported by regular military. All the people who produce all the products from them come from regular military. Sure, they have to join them and go through some vetting to get into there to either work intel, be their vehicle mechanics, whatever you need, they're going to be there from the regular military. And outside of that, most of the operations that are done in wartime are done by the regular military. And the special operations are the ones who are doing the high value missions. And if you ever talk to any of the special operation guys, they'll recognize this because it's a legitimate viewpoint. But with that said, if we just use special operations, we will take it to as well. However, it will go way faster if we use soldiers, sailors, and Marines will get this job done quickly. If that's the way we go do it. Unless we use special operations in a form to go train some indigenous forces in Mexico. But in retrospect, when you look at it, we've already been kind of doing that anyways for years. So we have a group that continuously goes down and trains with them, and we still are where we are. So I think it's going to take a lot more than just some special forces. It's going to take a lot of the regular army as well. I say army, I mean all the military, Navy, and everything combined into that. It's going to take most everybody to go do this and go do it quickly. Because if you look at that Venezuela mission, that mission had only a handful of operators on it, and the rest were done just by regular, everyday military. Because that's what it takes. For every operator you have, when you look at units like that, you have anywhere from like 10 to 20 to maybe even more, depending on the unit, support personnel for them. And it depends what you're doing on the mission too. Are you flying somewhere? Well, then you're going to add a bunch on top of that, right? Because everyone supports each other in what they do to make the mission happen. So it takes a lot, but just because they're regular military doesn't make it any less. Because the thing is a lot of people don't look at the regular military as having as much excitement and value as like the special operation guys. But it really is, because just the way you support everything and what you do, you have one task usually. So what you do as a soldier is you have one job, and you do that job, and you do it at the best of your ability. And when everyone does their job at the best of their ability together, that's what makes the American military like no other military on the face of this earth. Because just our average soldiers doing their job at the best of their ability is better than a lot of countries' special forces. Not all of them, but a lot of them. That's the kind of people that we have in our military. So I want to give credit to the regular military, you know, because they deserve it. And it's not to take away from any of the special operation guys either. It's just showing that if we want to do something and do it quickly, the more numbers we have, the better off we are. And it's pretty easy for special operations to work with our military. Granted, they're not at the same level, but it's pretty easy to plug and play. As opposed to when you look at different militaries, it's not as easy to plug and play. But a lot of people don't take that into account. If you use a lot of our military, it will go a lot faster and probably smoother. Yes, more people are going to be at risk, and it's going to cost more to do it at that level. But if we're going to do it, let's just do it quickly and get out. But that's the last point I wanted to make, is that let's go in with some numbers and some might and just plow over it all and just end the threat and only have little squirters here and there that pop up that we have to take down later on. With that said, you've been watching Tradecraft for Life.